Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in.
That was great. That was the most riveting experience we've ever had. That was,
yeah. I thought it was a really powerful episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lives were changed.
I moved.
I'll never be the same.
I've just rewritten my entire manifesto on life.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the things we spoke about, man.
Man, I'm gonna lay down and probably just take a nap or something. That was, whew.
I'm physically exhausted, which is the shocking thing.
Yes. 45 minutes earlier.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. How are you doing? Hopefully you're all well. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Forever DM. The Silent Bob to the J and Silent Bob that is Clash of Quests. Clash of Quests, it's something that we're kind of doing on the side of this. It's a bunch of forever DMs, forever stuck behind the screen, decided to get together and play D&D as a group. So what we do is we all take our players up one level and then we kind of shift like a round table kind of thing. But anyway, that's then you can totally tune in every Saturday on Twitch, Clash of Quests, 7 o'clock UTC. But that's that. We're here to talk about this. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I'd like to introduce you to Bam.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Yeah, Bam. Brandon Allen McClenahan, if you want the long lettered version of it. But recently they've started calling me Bam, and I have to admit, I kind of like it. Bam. Just gets like, boom, there it is. Bam.
Bam. I have been looking forward to this for so long. So a lot of the guests that we have were from a few different posts that we put out, asking for guests, because the whole idea of this podcast is that, new DMs or, even old DMs, always looking for new tips and tricks. And most of the time it means that we go on YouTube and we end up watching, the same videos. We end up watching Mercer and Colville, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we very rarely get to talk to, Dave down the street and his experiences. But straight away, Bam's comment just sort of lit up, and then he linked me to his show, We D&D.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to it too, man. It's the energy that just comes off you even in your contact is a palpable thing. And then it was I pretty much immediately knew. I was like, man, yeah, no, I want to reach out and see if I can be a part of this, man. I like what you guys are doing. I love even that concept, the Forever DM group is just that's fresh and original, and I love it.
I think a lot of DMs have found themselves Forever DM by design or accident. It's just happened. What system are you guys playing on your channel?
So currently we are playing 5th edition. We play pretty close to Raw. I always find that at least staying with Raw as a decent guideline, it helps people, at least they can look stuff up on their own time. Anybody who really just enjoys the game, there's that element of rule of cool, and I certainly have no problem with it. I do think that the framework of the game kind of helps make the game more interesting. So the limitations you have to kind of push against, I think makes the victories that much more fulfilling. So I do like rules. I do like the established, otherwise, we're kind of just sitting around telling stories. So I do like the rule mechanics of the game. And yeah, we run 5th edition, which I've got to say for our format and the players that we have, I think is the perfect edition for what we're doing.
5th edition for me is easily the most accessible D&D edition that I've certainly come across. I haven't played many other editions. I've kind of dabbled here and there, but 5th edition it just seems so straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I cut my teeth on 2nd edition AD&D, watching my older brother play, and then me and my friends kind of making a Final Fantasy version of that. It was D&D rules, but we all had 9,999 hit points, and we hit for 4,000. And there was no real rhyme or reason to what we were doing. And then actually fell in love with the game, started playing 2nd edition, which, has some, Ben Barr's lift gates has to be the greatest stat of all time. That it's specifically you have a percentage chance to bend bars and lift gates. That's such a part of the game that it needs to have its own stat block. And then, yeah.
That's got Gygax written all over it.
All over it, yeah. Yeah, I'm so anti-edition war. I believe all D&D is good D&D, and if you want to play D&D, I'll play whatever edition you want to play. I do think they've really hit something special with 5th edition. Mm-hmm. They finally managed to make it, and honestly, the online accessibility of the game, being able to watch people play in conjunction with an easily integrated early system of play, I think they finally kind of hit the jackpot. And that's why you see, D&D's up 400% in sales. It's taking off.
It's huge at the moment. It's incredible. Do you think that's got a lot to do with the accessibility of 5e, or do you think it's just sort of right time? Stranger Things, for instance, it was a massive hit. Most of the time when I come up with people come up to me and we start that conversation of D&D, I can almost guarantee Stranger Things
is going to pop in there. Yeah, it's that weird convergence of I think probably the thing I say the most in conversation is nerds won the culture war. Like the biggest movies are all comic book movies right now. Like all the things that, there was, I guess I never really experienced too much pushback, but I was always kind of like a theater kid. So it's like we were all kind of off, but it's like, it hit with pop culture just at the right time. You mix in like critical, I mean, nobody can really talk about, especially streaming games, without mentioning like what Critical Role did for the game. And
Yeah,
it's
of
like,
course.
especially as a theatrical storyteller, the way I approach the game myself, it was really nice to see that foundation in character and story. And yeah, there's a game that kind of ties it all together, but it's like ultimately at its core, it's an epic, it's a myth, it's the stories we've been telling for centuries and millennia.
That was something that you mentioned before we started recording, and it's something that just strikes a chord with me that I absolutely love. You're right. It's just a part of our DNA.
I harp on it a bit, but I genuinely believe it's like one of the best things that we as a species that separates us, that got us from the forests and the hills and hunting and gathering, and then had us start building societies, was the tradition of oral storytelling. And so it's like, yeah, you're fighting dragons and you're going through dungeons and stuff, and the game can be whatever you want the game to be. But at its core, it's like you're getting together with your friends and telling a collective story from all your own twisted perspectives. And I mean, it's like, to do that, like the actual power of what that is, I think is lost a little bit in the fact that it's like, it is a silly table game with your friends. But man, any longtime D&D player can tell you there's still moments of those stories that will stick with you the rest of your life. And it's completely fabricated, completely in the moment, but it means just as much as any other lesson you may have learned. And there's so much power in that. It's such a cool thing.
I fully agree. That's one of the things I always tell people that have never played D&D before. Like part of the sales pitch, if you like, is exactly that, which is I've got a player called Milo. He played a character called Vidar. Now we are talking 4 years ago at this point. But if we go out drinking, at some point, we will talk about the time that Vidar accidentally shot a mirage, and it turned out to be the person that was supposed to be rescuing.
Yes.
That never happened.
In a nutshell.
Like that, yeah, like that. You know what I mean? There was never an elf called Vidar. There was a guy called Milo and like a guy called Pip telling a story. Like it was just in the moment. And yeah, no, I agree. Like they become these war stories that people just tell over and over because it's got that much power.
Yeah,
and
we all have the
body.
fabled crit story. We all have the fabled crit failure story. It's like once you have one, that's what's kind of been a joy about seeing new players play, is the first time you see them have that, where they really put some thought into executing an idea, and either it succeeds fantastically or it fails spectacularly. And it's just like, you see that look in their face and you're like, that's the thing, dude. Like that's what keeps bringing us back. We're stringing those moments together, and I love it, man. It really is the greatest game that I think has ever been made. And again, I think it taps into something much larger than like tabletop gaming or hobby or tradition. It's just kind of this weird hodgepodge of all of those things. And I can't get enough of it, to be real.
I fully back it 100%. Like you never lose that feeling of an amazing, like a crit success or a fail. Like you never lose that.
I don't want to be that guy, but I just ended a 2.5-year campaign. We played for 2.5 years, leveled characters first through 20th. First time at 50, we'd done that. And it was the last roll of the campaign. And it was a percentile roll. And it was like, would my character be destroyed forever as we killed this god, or would he be teleported safely to another plane of existence? Could choose high or low. Obviously, it's the last roll of the campaign. I said, let's do high. And right before, and it was on roll 20, so a little of the effect was lost. But I said, wouldn't it be hilarious if I rolled a 100 right now? And I did. The last fucking roll of a 2.5-year campaign, it popped up on the screen in the green letters, 100. And dude, it was like 15 minutes later before any of us were like sat back down at our computers talking. We were just running around, cheering, jumping, laughing. I mean, it was like we just won the Super Bowl. We're just, yes! And man, it was, if that is not pure and real and true, then I don't know what is. I mean, that moment was just, spectacular.
That's incredible. The power of D&D is incredible.
Yeah, it's truly awesome.
It's so far reaching. Like I know people that work the most dull 9 to 5, black, white, and gray, and then they show up to D&D and they get to escape.
Dude, yeah. And it's funny too, because it's like, I just want to stand up for the those on the other side of the spectrum. I am I'm a fire wizard for a living. I actually play an evil wizard in a big giant show out here in Vegas on the Strip called Tournament of Kings. And even for me, somebody who is literally around fantasy as a profession, it is still incredible to get home and jump into those books and just, fucking go off and tell a story with great friends. And yeah, man, it's even for those of us who have some sillier outlets, it's still just as rewarding and fulfilling.
Oh, for sure. As a creative, I don't think, for me anyway, there's no better avenue to pull that creativity down. Like being able to come up with an entire homebrew campaign. It might get nitty and gritty, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and the care when you see it, how really important these that's one of my favorite things to do is I do get slogged listening to a large group of D&D players all talk about a bunch of different characters, but I find I am never disinterested when a DM wants to tell me about their world. It's like it's such a personal kind of magical. I mean, man, it's yours. It's like, and how rare is it to get to show anybody anything that's truly you and of your own creation? And it's like the tenderness that they show and how excited they are. You can't help but get excited about it. And that's been, of all the new communities that I've kind of joined as this process goes on, these homebrew communities where it's so beautiful how much people care about it's art. It's my motto is with especially with, I mean, my production studios, art hard studios. It's like art hard, man. And I do absolutely believe that Dungeons and Dragons is a fantastic art form. It fuses so much different art. I mean, map making, cartography alone, on top of
Oh my
storytelling and
God.
character development, and such an interesting creation that, man, I do
No,
love it.
it's the reason we're here. But like, yeah, like sort of touching on that kind of art thing, I think one of the great things about D&D is that it doesn't really matter what kind of artist you are. Like, if you're a painter, you paint your character's
Yep.
portraits. Like, if you're a storyteller or if you're a writer, then you end up writing campaigns or one shots. Like, if you're a model maker, you've got that as well. Like,
Yes.
it's just got so many entry points
Hmm.
all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so, yeah, the inspiration that bubbles off each of those things too. It's like, I'm not a visual, I cannot draw very well. I've been trying to put some effort into it during this whole lockdown, but I'm really not, I wouldn't
Mm.
say an artist of much merit, but just looking at maps and how these map making programs work and stuff. And now I've built, 25 maps through Incarnate. It's an entirely new kind of thing. It's very Zen. I mean, you just kind of zone out for like 4 hours and hyper focus on the reality of this little piece of the world that you're creating. But
Like, seasons change
yes,
outside the window.
yes, while you just stare, contently. Is this house too big? Is the tree too small? Like,
You touched upon that, like rolling that 100 on the percentile dice as a
oh
player.
yeah.
But from a DM perspective, what's been your drop the mic moment as a DM?
Man, it's funny. It actually happened in We D&D. Not, this isn't a show plug. It's just one of those moments that I think I'll remember forever. We had done a chase scene where three of kind of the key NPCs to the party, and some of my players are new, so they haven't experienced the reality of the death of someone they care about yet. And I could smell it in the air. And the rolls were not good for the group that was going after arguably the party's favorite. I didn't railroad. This is, the dice played this out. But Martha, the sweet Irish dear, she that they just loved, that was like a mother to them. She's the one that they couldn't save. They saved the other two. And the episode ended with her being drug up these steps into this temple. So I knew it was coming for the next episode. I try not to over prep. I try to genuinely, I love D&D. I want it to be what D&D is and let them decide what the story they want to tell is. And
A more
so,
fluid, yeah.
but that was one of those ones where I said, oh crap. Like, I knew that was the last episode was them who was going to make it. If they could save everybody would be saved. But the dice kept two of them from being able to save Martha. They go up. I know Martha, I'm going to have this moment. So I, as a, theater mind, I say, man, I hit up my sound guy, Sandy, and I said, I need like an emotional, just something that tugs at the heartstrings kind of song. And he said, Sandy Stein, who is brilliant. He does all the music design for us. He and I have worked in theater for years together. He's a brilliant musician. And he said, dude, I've got this song that I wrote maybe a year or two ago, but I woke up in the middle of the night out of a dream and I had to get up and go record it. And that's where the melody came from. And I said, dude, that's so fantastic. Send it to me. He did. It was beautiful. And I, as a DM, know, haha, I've got them, right? I know I've got their heart cockles in my hand. I've got this touching song that I'm going to play as she delivers this touching monologue to them. And I'm just like so giddy with delight, feeling the moment build in the narrative. And finally we get there and I hit play on the song and I'm like, oh, they are going to cry so hard. And I heard the first note of the song and my eyes just start watering and it backfired on me entirely. And I'm trying to like do Martha's voice, giving this message to them. And my voice is like actually cracking because I'm like I'm losing it inside. And it was like, it touched like some of our, it was a touching moment. Some of our actors, it was their first time experiencing a good cry in D&D. But I thought it was funny that I was like, I've got you. Haha, I'm going to laugh and drink your tears. And it was me. It broke me immediately. I heard the first note of the piano and I was like, oh dear. That moment was because it worked for everybody, including myself. I got the splash damage of my own design.
Oh, that's pretty awesome though.
It was a great moment, man. Yeah, I try not to spend too much time going back and looking at old stuff. I mean, there's a certain part of me that wants to refine and make the show better in any way I can. So I try to watch each of them at least once. But that is a moment I like to go back because it's like I'm Bam, the DM of the show, is trying to deliver a performance for them, to connect with them. And I can see myself because I've seen myself perform a lot. So I see me like fighting to try to like, well, don't just start crying right now. That's like, you're not, you got to earn it, and it was like, but it was such a touching moment for me and I could feel it. And that's, and we're playing digitally. So to have, I think that speaks to them as performers. It's like to feel, I had that emotional moment with them, even though we were all actually just staring at boxes in our own separate rooms,
I mean, you created a moment so perfect that even you wasn't immune to it.
Yeah, it was and again, I think the brilliance of that moment lies entirely on this magical dream song that Sandy had to record. But it was like, and that story itself was touching me too. So it was like the reality of what this, oh my God, what a perfect moment. The song came out of a dream and now it's like existing in this thing we're trying to create. And then on top of like, oh my God, Martha's gonna die. We love Martha. She's like the most loving mother figure that most of these adventurers have ever had. And of course the dice chose to let her die because D&D is a fickle mistress.
It's a cruel and horrific game. I love the fact he was visited by the D&D gods. I mean, clearly it was no one else.
Yes.
The muses saw fit to wait an entire year to have that absolute power punch.
Exactly. They let it fest. I feel like the song got better each time it wasn't played. And then when we finally played it, it reached its true potential.
It was maturing.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yeah, you got to let it. Yeah. You got to let it, age.
So again, you've already kind of like vaguely touched on it, but you were saying about like, trying to make yourself like trying to evolve and become a better DM, but rewinding all the way back to the beginning, like if you were to sit down with the young hopeful Brandon, just about to dive into his first D&D game, what advice would you give him?
Man, it's funny. It's the same advice that I give to anybody that asks. It's a blessing that people tend to ask me this question when they feel ready to jump into the DM world. But it's the game is for the players. So the urge, especially is like, if you're telling a story, you want to tell a good story. So the urge to like railroad is always so strong, especially early on, because you want to show off your shiny things. You made the ruby encrusted forest and you have these NPCs that you have ready for them. So when they decide they're going to go left at the road instead of go right, and you've got the ruby forest to the right and they've already seen the map and you can't change it. It's like, no, then there's a magical force field to the left and you can't go past it. So, you're going to have to go to the right, and I'm certainly, young Brandon particularly was very guilty of stuff like that. And I find that as a DM, if you really, really, really want to have the best time, cultivate the best time that you can for whatever group you have. It's an ephemeral thing. It changes. The groups all want different things and none of them are wrong. And so just feel that out. Let them tell you the story they want to tell and then help them tell that story the best way you can. Don't force them to tell your story.
I like that. I dig that. Yeah. I mean, you were right though. Like it's not just young Brandon, it's every new DM. I'd say 90% of new DMs are guilty of not purposefully railroading, but it's that panic. Mm-hmm. It's that pure unadulterated panic of like, oh my God, they've gone left.
And I think as you learn, that's really what happens as you gain experience as a DM. It's not necessarily that you're not afraid of them going into the unknown. It's that you've found out the weakness that is over prepping, that when they take something a more interesting way, you should go that way and do that thing, and you will all be better for it. And it's not to say I've played in railroaded campaigns where I had a good old time fighting monsters and going through dungeons, but I didn't as a storyteller feel like I don't those moments you and I just discussed. I don't have any of those moments from that campaign because it was like my emotional choices were decided for me. Whereas that 2.5-year campaign that we just ended, we built this city. It was called the Fellsworn Keep. And I remember I could not go to bed one night because I knew my DM was about to attack the Fellsworn Keep. And I was like, how am I going to protect these people? And then I couldn't help but laugh at myself because here I am, I'm 34 years old, laying in bed, staring at my ceiling, like genuinely at a little bit of a moral crisis about like, what am I going to do for my imaginary village that I've built over the last 2 years? But that's because he gave that gift to me. He let me build that city, and he's not that kind of a DM really. And I say he's the greatest DM of all time because he was the one he's been my DM my whole life, but he really is phenomenal. And he saw a spark in me light up when we started kind of like, oh, now you're making an effect on the world stage and you kind of have some world power. And I lit up about it. And then he spent, his whole week, that off week, designing the city and coming up with cool mini game kind of thing that we could do with it. And there it is. Like that's not the story he was telling, but he saw the story I wanted to tell and he let me have it. And now I'll have that memory again, laying in bed, fearing for the people of the Fellsworn Keep. I'll have that memory for the rest of my life.
Literally what every DM I think achieves to do is to give their players like
Absolutely.
moments like that, like moments of staying up till 3:00 in the morning, panicking.
Yes. Fear and dread. And yes.
What am I going to do?
I want to be in your mind.
Drawing up very detailed, like siege defense plan.
Absolutely. Like, well, they're going to have demons. So it's like, they'll probably just teleport in. So like strengthening the walls isn't going to help. Oh gosh, maybe some kind of anti-magic, maybe. I don't know. Do I know anybody with anti-magic? And then I'm going through character notes, like by candlelight at 4 a.m. That's all any DM wants.
It's like you have actual lights, but you're like, no, I need candlelight. I can't just.
Yes. Yeah. No, I turned my normal lights off so I could see by candlelight.
Furiously writing and then scribbling out the notes like, no, that won't
work,
you idiot.
It's been tried.
With that being said, we D&D, man. Like, ooh. I mean, I think what you've already spoken about, and you can clearly hear the passion in your voice. You can clearly hear that, that love that comes through. So it makes complete sense that you over deliver.
Thank you, man. No,
on we D&D. So first off, I want to talk about like your background. So you've already kind of sort of hinted at the fact that you've got this kind of acting background, like this is thespian background.
Yes, I was a thespian, indeed.
Which means, I mean, obviously, in order to prove that, you need to know at least one stanza from one Shakespeare play.
Something to the effect of, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lowered in our house in the deep bosom of the ocean are buried. Something like that. Some little Richard III or yeah.
That's all I wanted.
Yep. Yeah, no, I got to keep my card. They come by and they ask me for I just ended I got a little high this morning and I wrote a sentimental post on our We D&D forum group. And at the end of it, I said, this is such stuff as dreams are made on. Just a small Tempest quote drop. I was like, come on, dude, you get all sentimental when you're high.
Oh, yes.
But yes, I have a little bit of classical training background. I have a degree in theater. I have been the artistic director for a couple theater companies out here. I'm born and raised in Vegas. I am they do exist. Some people don't know that. We don't live in casinos. It's a city of 2 million people.
Oh no, I assumed that everyone lived in casinos constantly.
That is a real thing. Like we're joking about it now, you and I. As intelligent men, but there are legitimately people in the world that think that it's like Judge Dredd, that the city is one giant casino that we all live in.
Everyone lives on the strip.
Yes, and the police is the mob,
Yeah.
And
Oh, of course.
it's a funny thing, man. But yeah, it's a normal city. I mean, the Strip is its own thing. It's a crazy place. But I pretty much only go there to act, and then I get the F out of there. But no, yeah. So I grew up doing lots of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I do love it. I grew up as a D&D kid, and so like the Shakespeare world just already fit to me. These, of course, there would be fantastical, magical creatures that can do these things, and these high stakes, epic world builders and leaders that are flawed and change. It was such a natural fit to me. I fucking love it. I do another show called Shot Spear. It's a touring comedy show where we get belligerently drunk while we do it, and it's a bit of a drinking audience participation game. Shout out to Shot Spear with Matt Morgan.
I was going to say Shakespeare is a great thing. What I've learned unintentionally by doing these interviews is that DMs love puns.
Oh yes,
like
yes.
I assumed it was just me, but like every single DM that we've interviewed, whether it's come up in the interview or pre or post interview, puns.
Yeah. It's the pun is the verbal meme, you know.
It's true, yeah.
If I may be so bold.
It's a bold statement, but I'll give you it. Yeah. I'll allow it.
Yes, I did a lot of theater. My cut my teeth on the boards. Theater is kind of and I would still say is a huge passion of mine. But yeah, so I did, and then got into once you get out of college, you start doing film, and I write for we have a comedy group called Mother Fuppets. We do sketch comedy. I've been lucky enough as I've been able to act professionally on the Strip and like actually pay my bills with it. That in my off time, I'm free to take these crazy creative risks, and
nice.
And so yeah, it's been a great run, and I've been blessed to work with some truly incredible artists, and I think that's a testament to the show itself. Is just that we've made so many amazingly strong artist connections, and they're all kind of so willing to help us put this thing together and bring music and art, really just kind of help build the whole idea of the show. And in that way, it's, to me, it is very theatrical, man. It's and like we said, verbal storytelling. I get to kind of bring you guys into my world. We get to watch these silly guys play together. I know it's like the idea sounds we get a little flack just when people just read the idea and don't see anything else. They're like, they think that it's going to be the butt of every joke is going to be like weed, and it's like, it's actually so not that. I mean, my campaign setting, the world of Ganjaria that we're building for the show, magic comes from weed. So it's ganja. So it's this magical plant from the Feywild. The Feywild actually breaks the matter of things. The gods are disconnected. So our original source of magic is gone. And now it all comes from these master nugs, kind of like the crystals in Final Fantasy, that go to each of these 5 kingdoms. And the world of Ganjaria is this big potleaf continent. And it's like, yes, there's tons of weed stuff. There's Sativan and the Indicus Empire and the Kush kingdoms and the Diesel dynasty. And it's like, yes, there's like a lot of, that's where like a lot of the stuff is. I let the weed kind of be a creative boon. But then in the show, I try to advocate for normalcy, that it's like, we are all active, even though we're high, or like we're letting that kind of help us get a little silly and creative, but we're not like, our mental faculties are not lost. Like so many of these stereotypes would have you believe. Our big motto is play your way. Like you don't have to play the weed way, but this is how we play. And we use the ganja to kind of be our fourth wall break between our character and our own brain. It's a little easier for us to get in their shoes and just commit to that world with using the aid of the old ganja plant. And so, we're trying to stand for a positive role model of marijuana. Obviously I disagree with marijuana as a class 1 narcotic and things like that. And it is quite a magical little plant that has all kinds of positive potential to it. But ultimately it's just like, look, here's a bunch of creative, passionate, successful people that all, smoke weed and play D&D together. And we have a great time doing it. And you should too. Like, however, whatever that means to you, whatever your version of playing your way is, whether you guys all want to be unicorns and fight all kinds of, it's like, it's your game is your game, man. Play your game, play the way you want to play. This is the way we want to play. We're just trying to have a sense of normalcy. We're just like kind of high. We're having a good time. Like maybe we giggle sometimes. But and then TTRPGs, man, that love of D&D that we have. This cast is a group of like accomplished performers. This thing works in all kinds of different formats. And I'm just trying to show this format. It's so outside of I would say the normal theory of what a D&D game would be like, that it kind of helps showcase something I believe super strongly in. And that is that everybody should play D&D. Seriously, at least 5 times.
I back that arbitrary number. I'm like, 5 times. Yeah.
About the 5th time is when you're hooked,
What I really like about your show is that I live in the UK, so it's slightly different. The royal we, shall we
The
say.
royal we, yes.
We've already kind of accomplished the first step, and that's, making sure that this stuff is legalized in a good amount of states at the moment.
Yep.
It's currently being worked on over here, but still, which means that we're now on to the second step, which is trying to dissolve those stereotypes. And
Yeah.
your show does that. Like you said, like, it's not just everyone just, dude, like that, it's like totally rad, kind of like staring off into space and like, yeah, giggling and stroking walls.
I think one thing we have a little bit of extra insight once it went recreational here, when you go to a dispensary and you stand in line and you look at the line, oh, there's like a lawyer right there. And then there's like probably a PE teacher right there. And then there's me, in my weed D&D shirt. And then, but everyone is represented. That great myth has finally been lifted. It's like, no, yeah, we've all kind of been doing this. And no, it's not really that big a deal. And it's a lovely thing. I try to be pretty specific with my lore and stuff too, because I want people to know it's like, look, this is a world that's built in my mind, and I have no trouble telling you who does what in this world or any of those details. And if I did, my cast, my players would have my back. So it's a fearless thing we do. Like we all have each other's backs, but we haven't had to. I mean, we're 11 sessions in now. And it's like there hasn't been a moment where all of us are just like, I don't know what's going on. Because that's not the reality of what cannabis use is. It can be if that's what you're looking for. There's ways to elicit that effect. But we're trying, like I said, it's just, it is kind of a personal thing. They say, make what you are. And this is me. I am a kid. I became a theater person because of D&D and video games. They cultivated my appreciation of visual art, story, character. And then when I got into theater, I realized, holy shit, I could do kind of what Scott Pilgrim does and fuse these like grandiose, magical D&D video game visuals in my mind with the great classics of Shakespeare and Samuel Beckett and things like that. And so the two just flowed so naturally. And now it just continues to where I am now. Like, it's like, well, I've produced shows, I've produced comedy, I've toured shows and gotten the vibes from different audiences. And it's like, this thing is who I am. We D&D it's not a moniker I put on. This is exactly who I am and what I'm about. We're inclusive, we're LGBTQIA positive, we want to cultivate a place where you can just come and, man, have a good time with us and just hang with us. And that's, it's like, if we accomplish that at all, then what else is there to do?
It's beautiful, man. I love the fact that, like, I was just like, yeah, you're destroying all the stereotypes. It is beautiful. Like, you get that vibe. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't a persona that you've put on. This is literally someone just putting a camera in front of you.
Yeah, seriously, man. It's a great, it's this group is, I can't speak to the power of this group of people. Like, it's when you put a show together, you have your like A-list cast that you would want to get, and then you start making your B-list and your C-list. And I reached out specifically to these 5 people first and foremost, and all of them connected with the idea, and they've been willing to take these risks. And now we're not joking. It's the thing we look forward to all week. It's just like, just being with those people. And that's, as a producer, I know when I'm watching things online, and I think that's a testament to Critical Role and a lot of these shows that have great followings, you just kind of want to be with those people. I don't really care what you're doing. The D&D could be a little slow that night. I just kind of want to see friendly, familiar people being lovely to each other and welcoming and feel like I'm part of something. And so it's cool. I mean, we had a bit of a issue with guests, or, one of our viewers saying some things that weren't okay. And we removed him. We used the moderation to remove him from the conversation. And he messaged me personally the next day. And I can't tell you how good it felt to say, no. Like, I literally don't care what your opinion on this is. This is my platform. Nice. And in this platform, I will not allow, it's whatever. It's my own small little chunk of the world. But man, it did feel good to be like, we do not allow that here. And then the people that were there after it happened immediately felt safer. I mean, that's why this Twitch 4th dimension breaking convention of shows now is really crazy, because it was like we got to engage in that moment live with the audience. It was pretty special.
That is pretty awesome. We're going to move into the last section.
Ooh, I'm excited.
The last section is always one of my favorite bits of this podcast. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of what happens when we have guests on, there's always a bit of a preamble, and then we just launch straight in. We don't really talk about the questions that are going to be asked because we want to keep it fluid, and we certainly don't talk about this third section. The reason we don't talk about the third section is because it's just nice to get a pure panicked kind of like, because this is where all the judgment comes in. Like, we won't judge you for anything else. When I say we, I mean me. But I will judge you for the next bit.
I believe in firm judgments immediately upon meeting new people. So I'm all for this.
Yeah. that what you say to the next bit is going to shape our entire future relationship.
Here we go. I'll be forever changed.
So I want you to recommend to me and everyone listening a movie, a TV show, and a book.
Okay, a movie, it's pseudo documentary, but it is singularly probably the thing that impacts me the most. A movie to go watch is called The Quantum Activist.
Okay.
And it is by a quantum mechanics expert, Amit Goswami. It is a practical application of the knowledge that we've gained from quantum mechanics. And I love it. And it makes you feel like you can actually help change the world. I love feeling empowered in that way. So I can't recommend it enough. It used to be on Netflix. They pulled it off. So it's a little harder to find now, but find it. TV show. There is a show.
Yes.
It is called Horace and Pete.
Okay.
It has Louis C.K., Alan Alda, Steve Buscemi, Laurie Metcalf. I mean, just an all-star cast.
I do love Steve Buscemi.
It's weird. It's half show, half like there's an intermission in it, and it's all shot single cam one side, so it's got almost a theatrical presentation. But man, Alan Alda plays the most racist old man. Alan Alda plays this insane. I mean, it's insane. But the show is a show unlike anything I've ever seen. So absolutely that. And then book, I do tend to tell everybody to read, is The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Tests.
That is a title and a half. One more time. What's it called?
The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Tests. It goes into the late 60s, near Summer of Love. Ken Kesey, the guy that wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he was part of the Merry Pranksters, which was like the first like art acid fusion. They drove around on this bus and like painted the forest and lived these insane lives. But yeah, those would be my three. Man, I bet that was the longest answer to that question you've
not at all. That was
had.
fantastic. And in fact, if you thought that was long, I'm throwing in an extra question because I kind of feel like, being a theater nerd as well, I feel like I need to ask this. I'm going to ask you to recommend a theater show as well, like a play, a production, or a musical.
I pick this only because your first reaction to the plot, premise, and execution will be one of outright disgust.
Okay.
But by the end of it, it is truly a fantastic story. We did it out. We actually won Best Production with that like 6 years ago. But it is called The Nether.
Okay.
The Nether. Let me actually, I'm forgetting the playwright right now. That's this time the wheat did get me. There you go. Her name is Jennifer Haley. I'm sorry. That's the playwright.
Okay. Jennifer Haley.
Jennifer Haley's The Nether. Yes. Very, very intense subject matter, but man, does it tell a story.
This has been incredible. This has been actually I've had so much fun. Now there's one final question. Those are all solid recommendations, and I'll definitely be. I mean, I'm definitely diving into Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
Fantastic.
So we always end with one deep philosophical question, which is Dirty Dancing or Footloose.
Okay, so I don't understand how anybody could ever say Footloose. It's clearly Dirty Dancing. I'm sorry. Maybe independent dance number, like memorable dance number. No, because even Dirty Dancing has the lift. You can't beat Dirty Dancing. It is absolutely the winner of that deep philosophical question.
It needs to be asked every single time. And
this is the hill I will die on. So, I mean, if we could do a whole nother episode just debating the specifics of this. No, the notion that there's a town that doesn't allow dancing, you've lost me immediately. But I do want to now make a D&D campaign based on Footloose. Thank you for that.
I mean, sure. Yeah, why not? Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much. Genuinely, this was an absolute treat. Just any kind of conversation like this is a good one. And I, as somebody in the community, thank you for facilitating this kind of thing. It's really cool, you guys, to do this.
It's a nice way for people to listen to quote unquote average DMs.
Yeah.
Like, it's good to know that not everyone is this high flying DM. Like
Matt Colville, love him. Matt Colville is my hands down favorite resource on the internet. But it's like, if you hold yourself to being Matt Colville, you'll never actually start doing it. And even he says that. He's like, look, just do it. Don't worry about all this. This is stuff to think about down the line. The first mission can always just be them, a goblin, a trap, and a blacksmith's daughter. Like, that'll still be great D&D. And if that's where you want to start, just start. Just do it. You'll find out you'll love it.
I love Matt Colville so much. In fact, that whole premise of the blacksmith's daughter and the goblins shaped my first ever one shot.
Absolutely.
Great. I always recommend Colville to new players.
He's my
Always.
favorite mind in the industry, I will say. And it's funny. I'm not really into Twitter, but obviously now doing a show, I tend to spend a little time on Twitter, just trying. I'm terrible at Twitter. I think we have like 10 followers or something, but it's been a gift just to kind of see Matt Colville off camera, the way his mind works, and that he's also this hyper brilliant guy off camera outside of D&D. It's I can't speak well enough about Matt Colville, but don't let guys like that stop you from, just taking a stab in the dark at it, because there's no way to do it wrong. The only way to do it wrong is to not do it. That's the only way you're actually hurting yourself.
That's a beautiful way to end the show.
I would say that my life is forever changed.
I feel physically exhausted.
Yeah, physically, exactly. My body is taxed.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an emotional roller coaster. It's been absolutely incredible. So thank you very much for listening, folks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry if I talked about oral storytelling too much.
That's my favorite bit, because I've never heard anyone say it so succinctly. Like, I've never heard anyone just absolutely nail it, because that's exactly what it is. That is the reason I play D&D, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy D&D so much, because it is at its core traditional storytelling. It's oral storytelling. It's what we've been doing for millennia.
Yeah, since the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So no, don't apologize for that. Like, apologize for everything else.
Yeah, all the other stuff.
All the other stuff. Every other word.
I have a blanket apologies clause where it's just like, just assume I'm sorry for anything that I said. And then, but if anything moves you or touches you, that I did intentionally.
But no, thank you so much for listening, folks. Thank you once again to Bam. I mean,
art hard, guys. Art hard.
Art hard. Also, we D&D. Check it all out. I will certainly see you guys next week for a brand new interview with a brand new DM. Don't forget to check out Clash of Quests on Twitch. You go check that out too. And thank you so much, folks. Be lucky and stay safe, guys.